Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, ko don Christie ho. This talk is actually inspired by the New Zealand government. I know, right? I come to an innovation summit, a tech summit, and I talk about being inspired by the government. Thank you. We have a government, though, that for the first time that I can remember has a minister who's responsible for everything open. Currently, that's Chris Hipkins. And we also have a government that has a very strong focus on the IT sector. So what I want to do in this talk is try and give you some ideas and some thoughts about how we as a sector might try and achieve these big ambitions that the government has for us. And I want to talk about stuff that will be an enabler for the future of our technology community. So one of the other goals that the incoming government had very clearly was that IT should be the #2 contributor to the New Zealand economy. Now, when you look at the data, and that data was kindly provided to us by NZ Tech, Graham Muller sitting in the audience over there, that means that the size of our sector needs to double, right? So from what we are now, 700 people at this conference, let's say, that in a few years' time, it'll be twice that size. And when I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking about last year's tech summit that I was here for, and I was thinking about one of the keynotes that was given by Ben Keeps. And what Ben pointed out is that, New Zealand's not San Francisco, we're not Silicon Valley, we're not Israel, we're not Denmark, we're not Estonia, we're New Zealand, and we've got to come up with our own way of doing things. And so I want us to come up with our way, our Kiwi way, of achieving these goals of open everything and at the same time doubling the size of our IT sector. And I guess what could be more Kiwi than collaboration? We're a small country, we kind of know each other or know of each other and know what we're doing. And we're very good at leveraging each other's work in ways that don't necessarily require complicated legal frameworks and lots of rules and government mandated this and so on and so forth. And this journey, I think, that we need to go on needs to benefit us as individuals. There's no point being open everything if we feel, well, we can't make a buck or we can't make a living, or our businesses can't be successful, or our communities will get cut out, or the future of New Zealand citizens will be somehow lost. So I kind of want to make us sure that what we're doing here is taking us on a journey that turns us into creators of technology, bringing new stuff to the world, rather than constantly just being pushed up that consumption stack, pushed out by hegemonies from overseas, pushed out by big cloud companies, further and further up the stack, so our niche gets smaller and smaller. So Simon Mutter is quite inspirational to me, the MD of Spark. And his focus for his company and his life, I guess, is to make New Zealand a place that his children want to live and work in, give them the opportunities that we believe we should have. So, a brief thing on me. Who am I? I sail little dinghies. Sometimes I'm lucky. In this shot, I sail really badly, I should say. And I'm like a sack of potatoes in my boat. I'm at the back of the fleet most of the time. At this regatta, there was a photographer on the Finnish boat. And I noticed this person just as I was coming up to the line in 30 knots of wind, waiting to get inside, get into a shower and have a feed and a beer. And I saw the photographer just before they hit that trigger. It was shoulders up, straighten your back, chin out, bang. That's what they'll remember me for, not coming last all the time. So that's a little bit about me. That's my authentic bit. The other thing about me is I've been in IT for 30 years. I'm a Unix geek. That's a who am I joke. I used to be a C programmer. 21 years ago, with 4 other people, we started a company called Catalyst IT. We were born as an internet company, and we were born open. We've been an open source company all those years. In that 20 years, we've built 9 companies, one of which we sold off quite successfully, Lance, 5 of which are still going. We've got companies in Australia and the UK, and last year we just launched Catalyst Cloud, which was a spin-off company for offering cloud services in New Zealand. My point is, I know what it takes to build a company. I've been there, to grow a company and to sustain a company. My other point would be it doesn't get any damned easier. But that's why I'm talking to you, I guess, and that's why I was asked to come up onto this stage, and that's why you might want to listen to what's in the rest of the talk. So, when these slides work, when we talk about openness, what are we talking about? I have sort of like a hierarchy of openness, if you like, some of which is around technology, but most of which is based on outcomes. One of my big passions is the topic of open knowledge, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the talk. That's the free access to information, particularly in education, in the education sector. And that's one of the outcomes of the sort of things we want to do. Of course, open source software, or free software, some of us call it, is a big part of my life and has been a major driver for our business success. And that, from a tech summit perspective, is what I want to focus on. Open standards are something that are really important to us. If anyone, those of us that have been in the internet for so long, know that the only way we can do our innovation in the way we want to is because the standards are open. And that's something that I think we're losing sight of, and something that we need to get back to, this whole concept of open standards. In the cloud world, Kubernetes is going to bring back that kind of open standard layer for the cloud, which is long, long overdue. Open society, this is something, again, that the government level is clear. So much of the technology that we use creates an asynchronous power imbalance. And again, for us as technologists, we should be thinking about how our society is impacted by what I would call closed technology. So that's kind of what I mean by open everything. So, why open? What are some of the justifications for being open? The poster child of the open source community is Linux, of course, the operating system that started development in 1991 in Helsinki. Something like 30,000 developers contributing to projects under the Linux Foundation. There's 1,300 companies a part of that foundation. It is the most popular operating system in supercomputers, on cloud computing, and on your phones. That's come about not because of one company pushing this platform. That's come about because of open source. But in a more local and perhaps more compelling story is the story of Koha, a library management system. In 1991, the Horowhenua Library Trust up in Levin, a small town just north of Wellington, discovered that its library management system was going to break when the Y2K flicked over. And of course, the small company that had bought this system off had gone bust, so they had nobody to fix it. So they went to a local development company, Canterbury, who in a few months rushed out Koha, a library management system based on the internet. And they said to the Horowhenua Library Trust, they said, look, we're a small company. We've built all this stuff out of open source code. You should make it open source. And they did. In 2000, they pushed out their first release, and soon they were getting patches from all over the world. Koha is now the most popular library system in the world. It's used in tens of thousands of libraries across the world. It runs the entire library system in Turkey. It's used in Scandinavia. It's used in the Vatican. So, whilst I keep hearing about how many more zeros New Zealand needs to build, and I don't disagree with the ambition of having more companies like Xero, I also think we need a lot more Kohas, because we can all benefit from Koha. We can all build our business around it. We can all add our own value to it, and we can all participate in that community, regardless of whether you're a technician or not. Turn it around, and the question should almost always be, why would you close something down? And there are good reasons for that I'll touch on later, but why would you start off in a closed environment? The Auditor General in 2012 did a review of all the successful IT projects in the New Zealand government. I'm sorry, I'm from Wellington. This is something that sometimes exercises me. And they found some commonalities. They found that the projects that were most successful shared these sort of features. So they were run in an agile way. They were very transparent, open. and they were based on open source technologies. That was 2012. You might have thought that in the succeeding 6 years, the government would have come up with a strategy around that. You might have thought local council would have done, but they don't. They haven't. There's just a report that was in the news this week from the Harvard Business School. And one of the really interesting things that I think as technologists, who I'm sure most of you in this audience and in this conference use open source technology, but one of the interesting findings of that report is that it's the companies that contribute to open source projects, that allow their staff to give code back up to the project, to develop features, to do testing, they get a 100% increase in productivity. Well, duh, of course, you understand that tool better. You have control of that tool better, and you can make it a better outcome for your product or for your clients and so on. And that's the flip that I'm kind of looking for when I talk about moving from consumption to creation. I don't know if many of you have seen this, this machine. It's one of the world's first computers. It was built by the son of a Hawke's Bay farmer, an economist called Bill Phillips. And it's built using Perspex tanks, hose pipes, and dye. And Bill Phillips used it to model the economy. And in doing so, he changed the language of economics. Now you hear about liquidity, about flows, and all that sort of stuff that just seems natural. And that came about from somebody who just used his ingenuity, his creativity, to build a computer. He didn't need anyone's permission. He didn't need to pay a license fee to anyone. Permissionless innovation is one of the key advantages that people in our communities talk about. The first patch to the Koha project came from Detroit. Guess what they make in Detroit? Or made? Cars, thank you. It was a car manufacturer in Detroit that used Koha to catalog all its manuals. They took the software without telling anyone, they used it, added a feature, fixed the bug, and sent the code back. Were any lawyers involved? No. Was there an agreement with Horowhenua Library Trust? No. Did Horowhenua Library Trust benefit from that? Absolutely. I'm going to run out of time, I can see. I won't spend too long talking about education and open knowledge, other than this is something that's a personal passion to me. My family's history is one of economic transformation as a result of access to free education and free knowledge post the Second World War. But we've built, as technologists, we've built these wonderful sharing platforms. We've built this hope of knowledge dissemination. And do you know what else we've done? We've slammed the shutters down as well. We've built tools to control, to mediate, to charge, to build. That's something that I think we need to address as a country and a society and as technologists. So, as you can tell, I'm reasonably passionate. I'm a big proponent of being open. But one of the things people like myself fail to do and fail to explain is that when we talk about opening things up, we're talking about choices that people make. We're not trying to force people to be open. We're not trying to force you to give up your privacy, your data, your code, whatever it happens to be. Because what we've spent a lot of time doing over the last 30 years is building frameworks, is thinking about governance, thinking about due diligence, thinking about the duty of care, thinking about how do you make sure that that patch from Detroit didn't break the Koha library management system. What are the processes? And we don't talk enough about these governance structures, the licensing regimes, the cooperation that takes place across the globe with these projects. But they do exist, and they do allow us to enter this space perhaps less fearfully than you would if you just thought it was a free-for-all. I've spent quite a bit of time over the last year or two talking about open data and something else called Mataranga Māori, which is the Māori knowledge and wisdom systems. And again, in our Indigenous society, there's a great emphasis on custodianship. Who has the right to tell you something and is that canonical fact holder. It may not be an individual. It may be a whānau, it might be your iwi, it might be your hapu, it might be something completely different. Because that information is important to that culture. And I think about it from a personal perspective. I often tell a story about my grandmother's educational experience where she had to leave school at the age of 12 and that of my mother and my aunt and compare the two. And the reality is I'm telling a story that isn't my story. It's my mother's story, my aunt's story. It's their daughter's story. It's my sister's story. It's potentially my own daughter's story. So what right do I have to tell that story, to interpret it, without it being appropriated by someone else in the wrong way, which is particularly the concern with many indigenous societies, how data can be used against them. So the whole idea that Māori data should be governed by Māori is, of course, seems like a no-brainer when you think about it. But those of us that have been pushing for open data have kind of forgotten that. The upside is, as I was saying before, there are frameworks, there are governance structures, there are ways of opening things up while still retaining that governance, that guardianship. So you can, if you like, perpetuate your culture without necessarily being fearful that it will be taken over, subsumed, or used in ways that are inappropriate. And nothing is a silver bullet. But I think we can move to be creators of open technology and open mindsets and lead the world in that. So nothing is a silver bullet. On the other hand, this is a picture of Cambridge University. This is one of my clients. I didn't get to university, and Cambridge bloody University is my client. Isn't that great? Other clients are Intel and UNICEF, and we've just built a cloud company, as I said before. We've got a core team developing Samba code, which effectively replaces Microsoft AG, and we're being paid by the French Finance Ministry to develop this further and roll it out across the French government. Isn't that amazing? I sometimes feel like I'm a kid in a lolly shop with all this open stuff around us. And to me, it beggars belief that other people can't see that as clearly. But like I say, it's not a silver bullet, and as I said at the start of this conference, you might have been running a company for 21 months or 21 years. It doesn't get any easier. But I do want to set out a challenge, right? I'd love it if everyone that has listened to this talk, and thank you, would go away and just think, okay, in my organization, in my life, what is the one thing that we could make open? Let's try it. Let's just try this one thing. We won't put the whole business at risk. There's just this thing we've been working on. Let's try. Let's see what happens. I can tell you what will probably happen. You will be acknowledged as a leader in that area. You will be invited to speak, and invited to speak overseas. Currently, I've got about 4 or 5 people in the US, India, Europe, speaking about work that we've been doing from New Zealand on various projects and leading various projects. They're Kiwis. They're not any different from anyone else in this room. They're not any better. It's just that they've done something that is open and interesting and has validity. As an individual, you will be employed. I'm damn sure you'll grow your business. I can't promise that because, there are other things that affect whether you'll grow your business. And you will be contributing to a digitally equitable society. That is so powerful. You'll be addressing that asymmetry of power that our communities and we have as individuals versus the rest of the technology world. So thank you for your time. I will make one more point. Christchurch is a fabulous venue for a conference, and the biggest open source conference in the Southern Hemisphere is LinuxConf Australia, and that's taking place in January, end of January. So if you're interested in this topic, if you're interested in understanding the community, meeting people, and you haven't already done so, sign up and buy a ticket to go to LinuxConf AU. It's fabulous. So thank you very much. I was going to leave a bit of, I've got 5 minutes. Excellent. So Mike's out. I don't expect you to have questions. I expect people to say, Don, you're talking rubbish, or have you thought about this, that, and the other? And I don't mind a debate. So you know how it's when we do questions and that person in the audience actually makes a statement and everyone goes, oh, it's supposed to be a question? I don't mind. Make that statement. That's what we want to hear. Let's have a debate going. Yeah.
If you are doing everything open source, you've got a group of people in the office putting it all on for free, how do they live? They're not earning any money from it?
Yeah. So Catalyst makes money in lots of different ways. So the question was, if you're giving everything away for free, how do you make money out of open source? How do we live? A lot of the work we do is services work, so it's consulting. It's building bespoke systems for clients who want something that augments their value. So most organizations exist as a separate organization because they do something that's different, right? There's a lot of stuff they do that's the same. The stuff we develop is focused on that value-added bit. It's all bespoke. And so we pull together solutions built out of these tools. As we do that, we often will be giving bug fixes back, new features back, and so on. At that point, it's actually up to the client how much of the stuff we've developed for them goes open. We try and persuade them it's a good thing, but you know that's their choice. That's a key way of doing it. We warrant and we have SLAs with clients, so we might set up a learning management system for universities, like Canterbury University. And we'll warrant that it'll be up 99.95% of the time, and they'll pay us to keep systems administrators and technical people going. For our cloud company, and all the cloud work we do is open source, anyone else can use that technology and build a competing cloud. We sell infrastructure as a service. We sell virtual memory, and we sell virtual networks, and we sell virtual CPUs, and virtual containers these days as well. So many different models. Yeah. Thank you. Any more? Yes. One of the,
looking at open sourcing as much as we can.
yeah.
It's kind of looking at the first small part that we make. We've run into lots of issues around legalities and how to actually structure things and license them and work out that kind of stuff. What's the easiest way to take that first small step?
So the question was about the legality of open sourcing something small and what licenses to use and so on and so forth. I think the first thing to recognize is, well, talk to people who've done it before, like me. First thing to recognize is that copyright underpins all your software work anyway. So you might use a license like the GPL license, and that sets certain expectations about how your software will be used, and also that maybe people will be more expected to commit back over time as well. But it doesn't stop you releasing that software under some other license in the future or changing your mind about it. So you might have discovered it was totally wrong, it's not working for you. The code that you already put out there will always be out there, I'm sorry, but anything else you can take in a different direction. So it's not like you're making a step and you can never go back. Because frankly, I think it was Ian McRae from Orion Health said, you know, he doesn't need patents to protect him. He just needs to innovate faster than the next person. And that's kind of what drives our sector. It's not kind of like protecting what you've done already. It's innovating faster. And you know, I don't think there'd be any technology company that didn't adhere to that or believe that that was the case. There was another question there.
More and more projects we're hearing about, with multi-million-dollar projects in the government, software projects. How much of the government uses open source that you know of?
So the question was, how much of the government uses open source, given all those hundreds of millions of dollars that are wasted on companies like Oracle and SAP? So in terms of dollars, it's all going to the big companies, right? In terms of actual software usage, of course, it's pervasive. But the problem is there isn't a strategy. And we need to demand that. I was very interested to see that Christchurch City Council has tweaked its procurement policy, which is a really good thing. They're trying to make it easier for Christchurch businesses to do business with the council, so you don't have to wait a year for a master services agreement or something. But I think as taxpayers and ratepayers, we should be demanding that if we've paid for some of this stuff, actually it should be available to us to reuse. Why does Christchurch City Council need to own software that Don Christie wrote for them? I've already earned my money. As I said, it's a services game. Why not make it available to anyone else in Christchurch or New Zealand to reuse, build upon, and so on? I think that's something that we really need to be demanding of our civil service. I think time is up. The clock's counting up now. 30 seconds. Oh, 2 more questions. All right. Oh, God.
An extra couple of minutes for questions.
Oh, you cheated.
We had contingency. So there's 2 here that I thought would be useful to throw up. One because one's particularly timely right now, and the other because it's had lots of votes. So the first one's potentially building on the first question, but that's around not just paying bills, but how do you build intellectual property if your source code is open source? Is there a further answer to that?
So as I said, everything around open source software comes back to copyright law. So that's from the code perspective anyway, that's the underpinning IP that you're building up there. Certainly you can capitalize all your products and so on. If you're earning money out of it, if you're earning subscriptions or SLA fees or whatever, you can capitalize that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. One of the really important parts of the IP things that we have at that we can use is actually trademarks. So it's really important for your software that you're releasing that you trademark it. That might sound a bit strange coming from an open source person, but Linux distributions are not allowed to use the word Linux because they're not Linux. They're using Linux inside it, but the Linux project is a thing. And you don't want, certainly Torvalds doesn't want Microsoft suddenly claiming that Windows is Linux, right? So that's a way of building up, brand recognition and so on. And it's an important part of the how we do open source and free software.
Such a common question, so it's good to have
Yeah.
an answer, some authority on that. The last question I want to throw in the mix, because it is very current, is given your comments and experience with the New Zealand government, what are your thoughts on the government CTO position? So we have about 1.5 minutes left.
Boy, what do I think about the CTO? I think the idea of the CTO was a symptom of something that was profoundly wrong in government that hasn't been fixed. I'm not sure that a CTO would fix it. We really need a different strategy. I am sorry for all the people that applied to the role. I knew a few of them who would have been great at it, and it's the way it's been handled has probably not been the best. Yeah.
Do you think that there's a place then for this individual, Don, to ensure some thinking and values around open thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Good
Okay.
answer.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Don. Thank you.